Welcome, I'm Kathy Royer. I'm with San Jose Rocks, and we are a nonprofit created by Dan Orloff, and we celebrate the music and technological innovations that come out of San Jose and the Silicon Valley. And today we're back at the Smoking Pig. We thank them for hosting us. This is their original location on 4th Street, and they're about to celebrate their 15th anniversary. They've got some festivities planned for the first week in August, so you might want to check that out. And today we have three more legends, and we have Frank DeRose, bass player, Kevin Coggins, drummer, guitarist, band leader, award-winning entertainer, Tommy Castro, and we're really lucky to have them all here. And I want to thank JC Smith because he has been very generous in introducing me to people like Tommy and Frank, although I've known you for about 10 years now. We met at, we were playing with people out at the Cats in Los Gatos.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, a long time ago. So I'm going to start by a quote I found that you posted on Facebook, and then we'll lead into why that's so significant. I read that you wrote, "Although we have grown our own branches, our roots came from the same tree." And before we get to why that is so meaningful, I'd like each of you to give us a bit of a bio on your early years, where you were born, where you were raised, what influences you had that got you into music, instruments you played, everything that kind of led up to you being a musician. And then we'll move into the next era of things. And do you want to start?
Sure. I was born in San Jose, and I was born in San Jose Hospital, over on, I guess it was Santa Clara Street.
Santa Clara?
Yeah. And the first place I lived with my parents was over here off 1st Street in Gish. It was Rosemary Gardens. And my father at that time owned a nightclub that played rhythm and blues. So I grew up listening to all the 45s that he would get out of the jukebox and bring home. So Bull Moose Jackson, Louis Jordan, Elvis Presley, you name it, we grew up listening to it. In fact, he brought home a jukebox one day from the company that was decommissioning one, so we put the jukebox in the garage and we'd listen to the music. All the neighborhood kids would come over.
I bet.
Oh, how cool is that?
My mother's brother at that time was Ernie Felice, very famous jazz accordion player. He played with Benny Goodman post-World War II, and then in '47 he signed with Capitol Records, and it was the Ernie Felice Quartet. So me being in a household that just loved music and encouraged musicians, when I saw the Beatles in '64 and said, "I want to play guitar," they went, "Okay, great." My dad said, "I know Bud Dimick, he owns a music store. Let's go buy you a guitar." Guild Starfire, I wish I still had that today. And that's how I got started. I was playing rhythm guitar.
Yes.
And somewhere around the junior year in high school, our bass player in this band that I was in, which featured Gary Alonji on guitar, who went on to play with John Lee Hooker, Michael Thomas on drums, who went on to play with Mark Ford Band, which included like Michael Osborne and Kenny Baker and probably Robin Ford dropping in and out once in a while. That's when Pat Ford wasn't available to play the drums. And Glenn Jones, singer extraordinaire of all four of us. He's the only one that never really went on to do a musical career. So that band was really popular. Our bass player went away, and they said, "Well, you play bass on all the blues songs that we play," because George wanted to play guitar. "We'll buy you the equipment, you play the bass." So that's how I got started playing the bass.
Okay.
And from there, I got a call one day from Gary Alonji in the late '70s. Meet me where we used to practice, and on that day I met Paul Durkett and Sid Morris and a drummer. And to this day, I believe Kevin was there on the very first day that I went to play the blues with those guys, because Gary said, "Don't worry, you know what to play, but we'll teach you everything you need to know that day." And that band was called the House Rockers, and I think I got a promo picture to give to you. And that band lasted a few years, and Paul for personal reasons, gave up the spot as the leader of the band. And during those few years we played, he was sick once or twice. And so Sid was friends with Gary Smith. He called Gary Smith and said, hey, man, we got a gig at the bodega. We don't want to lose the gig. How about you take Paul's place? So he came and did the gig, and next thing I know, Paul is gone, and Gary is in the band in 1980, and that was like the surge of the blues in the valley. It was all wrapped around Gary Smith. Wherever Gary Smith was, that's where the blues scene was. And places like out on Stevens Creek, the Meridian Quad movie theater had a basement club called Joshua's. They didn't play blues, but when Gary Smith came out of retirement, they hired Gary Smith, and Estrin and Hummel and everybody else starts showing up because, oh, this must be the place. Gary's here. So I was lucky enough to be associated with Paul Durkett, and then Gary Smith, and then me and Tommy and Kevin, we started a band called the Boulevard Blues Band.
And I'm going to stop you right there. And a lot of history there.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes. And I'm going to move on to Kevin. Tell us how you started out.
I just want to point out that Frank's talking about Gary Smith. That was a real important thing, that the House Rocker band and Gary Smith, of course, and Paul. That was like a nucleus of some kind. That everything it kept. It started a scene. It kind of kept it going.
Well, you know, we
as long
talked
as that band
with
kept
him.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked with him,
Yeah.
and yes, he was the nucleus.
Because that was the name you always heard about. You know, that if there was any blues going on in San Jose, which was, you know, which kind of weird. We're like,
Gary?
you know, we're not. It's not Mississippi or Memphis or anything like that. We're southern. We're here in Northern California. It's kind of a
Exactly.
weird place for the blues.
Well, he was in
you know,
Sunnyvale
farms
when
and
he-
orchards. Eventually, electronics in Silicon Valley and all that stuff happens. And what a strange place for blues music to kind of have a real, genuine, authentic, you know.
And how
sort of
fortunate for us
beginning.
to just somehow
Yeah,
grow
yeah.
up
And
here.
that's our story. That's
Yeah.
our story.
That is the story.
And that's why we're focusing on this, because it's a very unlikely place for this magic to happen. And you guys were all part of creating it. So I am going to move on to your bio.
great.
Because there's so much to say by the time you get to JJ's and all of that. You do have a great picture here, though.
Paul Durkett. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So I kind of similar to Frank, my family, father's side of the family was in show business. So enough said about that. They did not encourage me to be a musician. I will say that. Anyway, I joined the school band when I was 10, started playing the drums. And started playing out. My first few gigs were literally at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, the rock and rail stage. I didn't bring that picture, but 1969. And I continued, I kind of got in the circuit of people playing at the fairgrounds, and I participated as a backup musician for Elvis impersonator contests. My younger brother, Brian, you know Brian, you guys both know Brian.
Yeah.
He was also in some of these bands. And anyway, you know, I sort of just played through this thing. Well, I went to high school, and this is a name you'll
Del
remember.
Mar.
Del Mar High
I
School.
knew that, yes.
You'll know this name from the previous interview, Larry Callie. Larry Callie was an instrumental person in our blues scene. He and I played in rock bands when we were in high school, but he'd been reading like Cream magazine and all this different stuff, right, in his later high school years, and he told me in 1973, a year after we graduated, he said, you know, if we really want to be good rock musicians, we have to learn how to play blues, because all of these British guys, Clapton and
Exactly.
Beck and everybody, they all played blues. So we have to learn how to play blues. And I'm like, what's blues? So what we did was we started woodshedding early Yardbirds and that kind of thing. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the last few days who were in this kind of this time period between 73 and 1973, 1975. So I'm not exactly sure how this all happened, but I will say that in 1974, Larry had gotten us involved, he and I involved with Chris Cain. And so we started going over to Chris's house, which was a kind of a famous gathering spot for people to play blues. And around 1974, and I lived in a house over on the west side, and we had these big parties. We started inviting those guys over. So actually, in this network, we met on the west side. We met guys like Dave Holhouse. I don't know if you
I remember Dave.
And there were some other guys in there. Paul Durquette was in that scene, and we met Andy Just through that. Okay, and so we actually introduced Andy to Chris where I lived.
And you heard him talk also. I mean, he was in Cupertino.
Right.
And then he described going over to the east side, to the grittier side of town, and specifically mentioning, of course, Chris Cain.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so so that was kind of an interesting thing. So we had this band, and we started playing together around 75. And there were a number of people involved in that. Sam Varela kind of came through a little bit. I met Gary in 1975, 76. I started playing a few gigs with him, just local little stuff. And I think that was through Paul Durquette. And that sort of grew. I kept playing in different bands. I started traveling around a little bit. I got involved with an agent named Shannon Green. And that's what led me to actually meet Tommy. And I can actually tell you when that was, because I've really done some
schedule there or
research
something?
on this.
You did.
Or no
Some
gig schedule?
I auditioned for the
it's
band
touring
we
the
were
Black
in.
Angus circuit. That's called
Turning
touring.
Point. I have a picture of Turning Point. Where is it? It's.
Wow. Oh man.
Look at that picture of
Which
Tommy
one's
Castro.
Tommy? I can't figure out which one's Tommy.
The handsome
Yeah, I ain't
guy.
saying. The guy. Look at my Tony Orlando hairdo.
Oh my
I had
God.
a peach fuzz mustache there that never shaved it.
So hopefully, if we could scan these.
Sure. Oh yeah, I have a bunch of different pictures.
Hard for us to see on the camera.
So anyway,
Take a closer look.
I had Shannon. I was in a band playing for Shannon Green's agency, and I didn't like the band, and he said, "Well, I got this other band."
They were specializing cover bands. To
Yeah,
play in the bars.
exactly. Yeah.
In those days, it was very common for a band to play all the hits on the radio.
Sure.
And there was before DJs were popular, and human DJs basically we all go in and play.
Right.
Not one band, not like a tribute band, like playing one band's music. We'd play everybody who's on the radio, and people would pay you to do that. You could get work doing that. Top 40 scene.
Well, the thing is, none of
that's
these
where we
guys
kinda
playing
met.
blues were making any money, and I
course
needed to
not.
pay my rent. So anyway, that's why I worked outside of the blues, much to
there
some
weren't any
of
blues
the-
gigs. There were no blues gigs.
Well, they were all low rent. They were the Wooden Nickel and all these little clubs, right? So anyway, my point is, I'll say this: it was the day I auditioned for Turning Point was I have it right here. It was June 8. It was June 18th, 1978. I auditioned for you guys. Yeah. So, 79, sorry. And I got the gig, and we started a week later at Sebastian's in Kemble.
There you go.
Anyway, so I played in that band for about a year and a half. I left the band because I wanted to go to school. So I ended up in University of New Mexico. There's pictures in there of that. I came back, and I was married at the time. I got divorced, and I moved back here in late '86. And to get me out of the doldrums, Tommy and Richard Palmer called me up and said, "Hey, there's this little club in San Jose called JJ's, and they have a blues jam." Because we just wanted to play blues. So we ended up getting that gig, And we got that gig and started it in I've got it right here, 1987 on April 14th, April 8th.
We were auditioning for this, Kevin, for this top 40 band, and we know how to play this funk beat and this disco beat and this rock beat, and we tested him out on all this stuff. I'm like, this guy's he knows everything, and then we say, I think we probably told you every night we play at least one shuffle and one slow blues.
No, you didn't.
And we didn't tell you.
I found out because when we started at Sebastian's, we had no rehearsals in Turning Point.
So we jammed on a shuffle or something like that.
At the end of the first night, they said you can rehearse after the people leave.
Yeah.
And you guys said, okay, well, let's warm up on a song. And somebody said, well, what do you want to play? And what's his name? Richard said, well, let's just play a shuffle. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, these squares playing top 40 are going to try and play a shuffle.
This ought to be fun.
They played Tour Down, and I was like, oh my God, these guys know how to play a shuffle. But they just wouldn't play any blues at the gigs.
Well, we started doing one slow one and one shuffle every night. We just kind of we were popular enough. We felt that we could get away with that without getting fired.
Right.
But every now and then, the owner of the club, whatever club we happened to be playing, would come through while we're playing Red House, because that was the slow blues we always did. But because Eddie, our other guitar player, Eddie Joseph, is important to the story too, because he ran that band. But he loved Hendrix, and he just really kind of wanted to be Jimi Hendrix. Like, who didn't, and he could really get that sound and play the Stratocaster and everything. So every night, rather than doing any other just random slow blues, we would just, because Eddie loved it so much, we'd play Red House, and I was happy to get to play a good 12-bar blues solo. Yeah. Any time that night was just like that made my night, and we would do a shuffle. So anyway, that's kind of how this
I'll just
interesting
say,
connection.
A funny thing is, you were a second guitar player in that band to Eddie, and you were a second guitar player in Night Cry to Renee. Yeah. You were a singer, right? That was your gig. And so it's just funny that your prolific career ends up with you being the main guitar player.
It served you well.
I guess I that's what I just remember thinking I was happy being the second guy, because it was less pressure. But after a while, I was practicing, and Frank was feeding me, tapes of all the shit that I needed to learn, and I was getting better at it. And at one point I went, I've been the singer in this band, I've been the guitar player in this band, and I want to be the singer and the guitar player.
Well, let's back
and I
up.
started my own band.
So, Tommy, give us a little idea of your start.
Okay, so probably the most important thing about that is my brother Raymond, who was 6 years older than me, and he was just one of those guys who would be the first guy to do everything, And in this case, he was the first guy of our whole neighborhood, anybody for miles around, that played a guitar. And he got turned on by the Stones and the Beatles, the Stones, the Beach Boys, all that stuff was going on in the '60s, and we were really we were raised by our single mom. We were dirt poor. There was no money around for music lessons, instruments, and things like that. We had to be very creative in order to get a hold of an instrument, but. The family kind of rallied around and got my brother a guitar at some point because he had graduated high school or something.
You were downtown San Jose then, right? Or just in the north? Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were downtown.
Yeah.
We moved around a lot downtown. There's an old song called "Moving at Midnight," but it was a lot. Often we would, we would just run out of money to pay the rent, and we would have to move to a new place. And as kids, we were like, "Why are we moving again, Mom? We just haven't been there that long." She goes, "It's okay. We'll tell you about that later, but we got to go." Anyway, so we moved around all these little different streets. So I live on 21st Street, 20th Street, 14th, 16th Street, 19th Street. 19th Street at Empire, that's where kind of we met. There was this little action there because Larry Antanasio and his brother had started a band because my brother was playing guitar around the house, and I started playing because my brother was playing guitar around the house, and he just started playing and joined a band, and sometimes they would rehearse in my mother's basement, and sometimes I would see them perform at Shakey's Pizza or something like that, and they were the top 40 band of the day. They were playing the Doors, the Beatles, the
That's the stuff.
the Yardbirds. They would play really cool stuff. So some of it was blues, occasionally Paul Butterfield, but they would do a variety of rock music. And anyway, that got me started. And I would go to him and say, "Show me how to play the guitar." And he'd go, "Well, okay, I'll show you something, but you have to go and shine my boots." So I shined his Beatle boots, and then he would show me a song,
Pay to play.
Yeah, and then I'd say, "Hey, Ray, show me something on the guitar." He'd go, "Yeah, my car's dirty. You got to go wash the car. Go wash the car, and I'll show you something." So I eventually learned a few things on the guitar and met up with my own friends, and that's how it happened.
I am told that you had your own apartment at 16 and you would have jams there?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, a couple of friends of mine and I wasn't doing very well in school. I really wasn't going. I was just kind of I would show up, meet up with my friends, and we would just go get in trouble. So
Where'd you go to school?
I went to San Jose High for a
you
while,
did?
and I mostly went to Willow Glen,
Okay.
and that's where I had an beat up old Ford Falcon, and we would all, the only guy with a car, so we would all meet up, and everybody would talk me into going, quitting, cutting school and going off and having fun. And anyway, what was the question?
Your apartment when you had jams.
Oh, okay. So after a while, I wanted, a couple of buddies of mine. We found this cheap apartment that we could all share. So there was 3 guys in a 1-bedroom apartment. Ken Chase and Ed Van Hagen and myself.
Wow.
And I got the
So
couch.
is that how you ended up in Turning Point?
Probably, yeah, exactly.
Because of your knowing Ed?
Well, we started that band together because my nephew Mark and I, interestingly enough, we just got through writing my whole next album together. That's another long story. But Mark, he was playing drums, and I played guitar, and we would fool around, jamming in the living room at his place, and we wanted to be like Touch and Go, and like any number of club bands that were really kicking ass. Now, this top 40 bands, not to be taken lightly, because the best players were the guys getting gigs.
Right.
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 And so these guys, wherever they came from, play play the Parlor or the Outlook.
Touch and Go played the Parlor.
Any of these clubs, they were really good, qualified, great musicians and great bands. They're just playing this music, because that's the only kind of gig you could get. So anyway, Eddie and I, we shared that apartment, and we would we were just kind of not serious musicians at that point. We'd take out a guitar and, smoke some weed and just, jam on stuff there wasn't even a song. We would just take a riff and just play it for
was
half
practice.
an hour. And we knew the 3 chords to how do you play Mr. Fantasy, by Traffic, 3 chords, around and around and around. Everybody take a solo, everybody take another solo.
Wow.
And so we would just jam in the garage like that.
Yeah. So did you know Chris Cain back then? Because
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Because I know some of the other guys that grew up on more the east side.
Yeah. We lived on 19th and Empire, which was basically
Real
the
close.
east side.
Yeah.
And I heard about Chris. I was in one of these. Hadn't really even gotten to that top 40 band stage yet. I was still just kind of I played for fun at home. I played with friends. I really wasn't getting anywhere. Yeah, I just really wasn't, anywhere yet. So it was Mark and I was jamming around the house.
You guys hired Richard. So how did Richard get into the
so
band?
Marky and I wanted to start a band, and I remember Ed Van Hagen, my old buddy from the neighborhood. We used to jam and play guitar, and somehow I got a hold of him, and we decided to look for a bass player, and then we got Richard because in those days there were no electronic keyboards, there were no digital keyboards. You had to have a piano, a real piano, upright or something, and
Had
you
that
had to
Yamaha
have,
Grand.
and people had B3s, and so Richard had an M3 in his basement, something like that, and he had an upright piano. So we would rehearse at his place. And when we finally got a gig, man, we had to schlep that B3 up some stairs one time just to play at some bar. It was,
In the early days of the House Rockers, Sid Morris had a 66-key spin-it acoustic piano. We used to have to load it in my van every gig.
there was no other
Because
way.
it was the real deal sound. How could you play blues like Otis Spann or Professor Longhair and not play on an acoustic piano?
So all of you were influenced by what everybody else was talking about too. All of the top 40 stuff and all, the Beatles and eventually the Stones and all of the different people that came that based their music on the blues, and then people finally started to realize where all of this was born. And you guys seem to all kind of gravitate towards the blues as you were playing all of these different top 40.
Well, when Tommy and I were in Turning Point, so I'd already been playing blues for, say, 5 or 6 years, because now we're talking about later 70s, right? So, but what we did, we traveled a lot. We were pretty much constantly traveling. But we played gigs for like 1 or 2 weeks, sometimes a month at one place.
Yeah.
So we would gather at the end of the gig, and usually in our hotel room or a band house or whatever, and we would listen to blues.
Listen
And
to
we
Muddy
would-
Waters. That's the first time I heard Muddy Waters after hours, after one of those shows.
But this is what
Yeah.
was kind of like really fantastic for us as friends, was that we would hang around and talk about, boy, we just wish we could be playing blues. Wouldn't that be great if we could be in a blues band, blah, blah, blah. And it was really in this thing in the mid-'80s when I had already met Frank, and I only did that one gig. I was in between road gigs with Shannon, another band with Shannon Green, and I was available for that one gig. I played that one gig with you. And then I took off, and I was playing this gig in a trio with like a girl singer and a guy playing piano and kicking bass. And I was like, why aren't I out there playing blues, right? And that's where I really love. So my point is that when we actually met at JJ's and started jamming there and ended up getting that gig to be the house band,
I couldn't believe it. It was like Christmas. It
Yeah,
was like my
yeah.
birthday. I was like, we really get to play blues all night?
Yeah.
but it was the realization of a dream that we had expressed.
Maureen.
Yes.
Yeah,
And for me, I'd already been through years of Paul Durquette, then Gary Smith and the House Rockers, then a member of the Mark Hummel band, then came around to playing another stint with Paul Durquette and Larry Callie that Kevin had mentioned. We were called the Troublemakers. And then it led to us being the house band.
So for context, also what happened about that time in 1981, Fountain Blues Festival started, and that was another way for people to be exposed to the blues. And you were saying that they were the lower paying gigs, and I understand part of the reason why they focused on the blues to do that festival was because it was less expensive for them to have the blues performers at that time. And then in 1983, JJ's opens, and so now you formed the band, the Boulevard Blues Band, after you've done all of your other individual endeavors to build your experience.
April of '87 is when we started that.
Now, I'm just guessing that Boulevard Blues Band refers to Stevens Creek Boulevard.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just needed a name. We came up with it one afternoon.
I figured that was where it came from. Yeah.
So from the time I was about 12 or
This is a
13 years
great
old, I
picture.
was listening to blues. I was listening. My favorite guys were like Elvin Bishop and Taj Mahal, and I started learning about Muddy Waters. I got the Fathers and Sons album, and oh, that's a great record. That's how I found Muddy. Really, actually, I was a teenager at the time. So I'd secretly in my room playing with B.B. King, live at the Regal, live at Cooks County Jail. I was listening to Jimmy Reed and all of that stuff when I was really young. But there was never, the only gigs that ever came my way were these other kind of gigs, right? Playing cover rock and roll stuff and whatever. So when I finally, we had this, I would go to the jam session at JJ's. That's what happened, is they started having this Sunday afternoon jam. I started going to it. And Max, one day, he looks at me and he goes, I need somebody to run this jam. You want the job? And I went, yes. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I just said yes. And that's when I called you, and I called Richard, and I called Wayne, and
I came in just like maybe a few sessions later. I think Kevin might have gotten in touch with me to come and play at the jam.
I have a different recollection of that. What I remember was that we were there, we had gone in a few times, and in March, early in March, Dave West, who ran sound, and he kind of was the intermediary between Max and the band. And we were in there, and it was a band from Oakland that had the jam session. But what they did is they played the first set, and then they just got off the stage, and it's like whoever wants to play, just get up and play. So Dave West, after you and I had played, you went out front, and Dave, this is how I remember it, Dave said to you, would you be interested in running the jam? And from what I remember, you said, yeah, sure, that'd be fun. And he said, well, who would you have in your band? And you said, well, my buddy Kevin's up there playing the drums. And Dave says, okay. And then you said, well, we could, but see, there were...
Something like that.
The other part of the band was Don Gaynor, Mona Lee.
Oh, that's right.
Finley Henderson, and Dave Chelmer. They were the other part of the band with this band from Oakland. So when we started the jam, we inherited Don and Mona and Finley.
And Finley.
The sax player.
I barely remember Finley, but I do remember Don and Mona.
Yeah.
I do remember that, and that was when the name of the band came about.
Right.
So who was on bass at that time?
Mona Lee. She played bass.
Okay,
I got a picture of them here too.
That didn't last very long, though.
It didn't last very long because we wanted to get Wayne and Richard to kind of button up our dream of having Turning Point play the blues.
Yeah, and more, yeah.
So after a few months, we had that.
We all had a similar kind of idea what blues we wanted to play.
But that's
Don was more into kind of like Little Feat and more progressive blues, you know.
But that's how Nightcry got started.
But we wanted to play more traditional stuff. We wanted to play real stuff. So that's where I said, Richard, the guy, he's like an encyclopedia. He was just like Frank. He would always be feeding me the stuff that he knew I needed to know, you know.
Educator even.
I'm not a scholar of the blues. I just play this shit, you know. But thank God for guys like Frank and Richard that would, you know, they'd look at me and go, he's got the right idea, you know. He's got a little talent and he's got a good feel and a pretty good voice, and you know, and he can play, but he needs to listen to this more. He needs to listen to some more of that, and that's how I got my education, really. And then later on the Dynatones.
Yeah, and that's...
that was a great offer.
Walter, and that's the thing.
Yeah, that's another guy that did the same thing you guys did for me.
In the Poltercat and the House Rockers, Kevin couldn't stick around as the drummer, so Walter became our drummer.
Oh, man.
So Walter would drive down from San Francisco, wherever we were playing, and he was the drummer. And he was a drummer for a good year.
Walter Shufflesworth.
I still keep in touch with Walt. He's living in Florida now.
And then when Walter started to get into the Charlie Musselwhite thing, he left, and Durkett got a guy named Steve Collar. He stole him out of the Andy Just band, or out of the Andy Just Chris Cain, you know. So we ended up with this guy, Steve Collar, who was a great drummer. And but see, that small circle, you know, Walter to you, Walter from me to you, is like, man, the great players all gravitate.
It's like a pinball game.
Yeah.
You're right. balls are bouncing off and knocking around, and
Yeah,
you know,
but I got that
bands
same,
happen,
I got that same
influence happens.
training. You know, like when I got together with Durquette, I'd get the cassettes.
Do you remember
You get
how
the
Paul
guys.
found you?
Alonji told him about me.
That's not the story Paul told me. Paul told me I was walking down Broadway in North Beach, and I was walking by the Mabue Gardens, and I heard this bass thumping, this like bass, and I thought, who is that playing bass? He would be great in a blues band. That's what he told me about you.
Yeah, and I was playing Mabue all
He
the
was playing in a
time.
punk band at that time.
Yeah, I was in a punk band.
That's punk,
A
not
couple
funk.
of you guys have. JC started a punk band too. Yeah. I think Gary was in a reggae band for a while too.
right.
Oh, he had a great band.
So when you mentioned Max, just again for historical context, so JJ's was started by June Stanley and her brother Max. That's who you were referring to earlier, and
It was really Max.
He
June
was-
didn't really come into the picture as far as being in the club until
Till
maybe
later.
87 or 88.
Okay. Well, everybody talks about JJ's as the epicenter. That's where you all learned, exchanged ideas, developed.
If it wasn't for that, it would have changed everything.
Yeah.
It would be all.
But
It would be
yeah.
completely different.
You know,
I
'cause
wouldn't
I-
know these
It was
guys.
the catalyst.
Yeah.
I don't think I would. I would know
Epicenter,
you.
so that's
Epicenter, yeah.
You know, I played the first gig at JJ's with Gary Smith. There
I
wasn't even a
knew that.
stage there then.
Right.
We played on the
Played-
floor.
played on the floor.
And when we showed up, Max was out front barbecuing, and he's talking to Gary and me, and he's going, "I don't know, Gary. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't." You know, he's just sweating, and it wasn't from the barbecue pit. And 20 minutes before showtime, the place is packed with the Gary Smith fans. You know, and the rest is history, because it went from that one day to every Sunday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
know,
then
it's
7
7
days
nights
a
a
week,
week,
and then on
yeah.
the weekends 2 bands a day, and then some point it was 3 bands, noon to 3, and 4 to 7, and 8 to midnight.
So all the local people developed their skills and their networking and all of that, but you also had all sorts of other people coming through town that gravitated towards JJ's as well. So it was
All the headline pictures.
Yeah, all
If
the
you
headliners.
consider Albert King other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw Albert King on that stage, actually on this floor, in front of the stage, because there wasn't. He didn't. He's too big guy. It was. I don't
He
think
would've
it
hit
was
the-
small
I don't think there was
stage.
enough room for him on the stage. Anyway, he played in front of the stage with his band, and I Chris Cain's got a pretty good story because he opened for him.
Oh.
And he's saying, he says, I've got a video of Chris, and I did an interview with him, just kind of a long form thing, like 2 hours long, and he tells all kinds of great stories. But he was like, I'm opening up for Albert King at JJ's, and I'm playing, and I'm just really I'm thinking I'm opening for Albert, and he's really giving it his best, and then I could smell his pipe. I could smell a pipe, and then I could hear going, and I could smell that pipe, and I'm going, You could hear him saying in between songs, and so he was digging Chris. He was really digging Chris.
Yeah.
Well, I want to mention that as far as JJ's being an epicenter for blues, it certainly was, and they had bands that came through on the circuit. The jam session was an interesting thing because the format that we developed was when we went from the 6-piece band to a 4-piece band, and you and I were together at that time. That's when we hired Frank. And what the concept was let's bring in, because first of all, we wanted to keep the money from the 6-piece band for a 4-piece band. So the scheme was, let's hire a band leader, a local guy who's got a name, local Bay Area. And so, I literally
The front to be the 4th guy every week. Special guest.
because we
there you
could
go.
advertise. In fact, I've got a list.
Again, a model still used to this day.
Yes.
The people, the featured artists. I've got this.
Redwood City, I think, basically.
I've got this list that I made of people that we could start calling in: Ken Arconti, Gary Smith, Sam Varela, Mark Hummel, Bill Campbell. Remember him from
Never forget Bill Campbell.
from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
This is the real thing?
Yeah,
Oh
this
my
is the
God.
actual thing. Mark Hummel, Dave Wellhausen, remember him? Chris Cain, These are all the people that we hired on a weekly basis, and I had a connection with the Metro that I would change the ad. I would call the person, I'd say, who's our featured artist for the coming week? Mike Peliquin, Richard Palmer, Johnny Nitro, Andy Just, Renee Solis, Andy Mazzilli, Andy Santana, Mike Shermer, Don Gaynor, Davey Bryan, Paul Durkett, Liz Fisher, Johnny Hartzman, Anthony Paul. These are, and you know, the thing is, we ran that for...
Those were every Sunday.
I was there for 6 years. When you figure for 4 years we had that format, I did the math last night. What is
So
that?
was I in there for all of it?
Yes, for all of that.
You were in it for part of it, but you moved to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you left? You left Night Cry and you left the jam session
Yeah.
because you wanted to go on a different path. And we hired Mike Shermer.
That's right.
To take your place.
I do remember there was a point where I made a decision to really take a shot at making a living doing this. So
got a quote.
Nitro, and then you were up in San Francisco, and then you ended up in Walter,
Yeah.
and that's where you met
I just
Randy.
figured if I was going to really do it, I should go to a bigger city, and I didn't want to go to LA, and I didn't want to go to Nashville. So I think San Francisco would be good enough.
There was plenty
And-
of blues
and I-
clubs up there,
I
too.
saw a quote. You said, "I owe it to myself to go for it."
Yeah. I'd been doing some soul searching about that time, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, I was trying to start some kind of small business because I didn't want to work for anybody else, and I wanted to be my own boss. And I figured I could be a little bit of an entrepreneur of some kind. And I played music for fun. I played on the weekends, but I lived for it. I lived for that weekend gig. I lived for any gig. And one day it just dawned on me. I'm like, if you put as much energy into trying to start a small business, make this your small
into that,
business.
yeah.
And that's basically what I've done for the last 30 years.
You created your own business.
Yeah. It just kind of, I knew enough about it. I played enough gigs by then. I knew how that kind of worked.
Oh, geez.
That
look
was
at
our
that.
first jam session, April
Kevin,
1987.
You just got the goods.
Oh, check this out. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I played at JJ's probably.
You've been carrying this shit around
JJ's.
everywhere you moved all these years?
Yes, a calendar from 1987. Dude, I have.
God.
I played at JJ's so frequently, sometimes I'd play 5 nights in a row with different bands. And if there was a drummer like Randy would
Randy Hayes. Yeah.
Randy Hayes, I'd call him up and I'd go, hey, do you mind if I just leave my drum set and you can play it? And that way I can leave it up for 5 days on a stretch. But check this out. I'm going to just show you this
Girl
because,
Scout calendar.
well, I'm just a guy who always kind of.
Can't pass up a free calendar. I know.
Probably got some
Check this out. These are actually from the Metro, newspaper clippings of every week a different artist. Look at this. I got pages.
Oh, man.
I
I forgot
mean-
all about that.
You know,
Kevin Coggins band right there.
hey, JJ's was a career change
Absolutely.
for me because
Well,
it
so
established
many.
my career.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
blues.
so many of all of you guys.
Yeah.
You know.
And then Max and June opened the Mountain View Club, then they opened the downtown San Jose Club.
Now Gary opened the other two also. Were
Yes.
You, were you
Yeah, I
involved
was
with him?
I was
Yeah,
there
That's what I thought.
every first show at those venues. And like at Mountain View, I got to back up Larry Arkansas Davis, the guy who wrote Flooding Down in Texas Flood. You know, I got to back him up. It was
You know how you got that gig?
probably you.
Larry used to come into JJ's on Stevens Creek.
I remember when he lived
When
he
we-
lived here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they had the Mountain View Club and they gave him Sunday nights. So he would come into the jam and he would come up to me around, like when I was packing up and he'd go, Kevin, what are you doing? Where are you going? You got a gig? What's going on? He wanted to come over to the Mountain View. And after he did it about 4 or 5 times, I actually had a gig after because we played 4 to 8 in the jam. And I looked at him, I said, I'm not available, Larry, sorry. And he goes, but you're my drummer. And I go, Larry, you got to get a hold of me before the gig. So he did, he hired me. And so you, I'd get Renee, and we got different people, but Larry is the one who got us the gig on the second JJ's Blues Festival
Back in Albert.
to back up Albert King. And
He
on
used to
that
play
day,
bass for Albert King at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he knew Albert. Yeah. And we were basically, it was the Night Cry band. That's kind
with
of
my brother Brian on sax.
Yes, your brother Brian on sax. I can't remember who it was definitely Wayne and Richard and who was on and you. And
Well, it was just basically Night Cry
it was Night Cry.
as the backup band, but we were a backup band for a lot of festivals.
Right, but they wanted to book Albert King. They booked him without his band, and so somebody had to back him up. And so, we were thrilled. That's all I remember, is he threw me a solo. He remembered my name somehow. I helped him out backstage doing something. He needed some help with his guitar or whatever.
Do you have the video?
Yeah. And I'm over there wearing like a Miami Vice white beige jacket, and it was goofy. But anyway, I'll never forget that I looked over and the big old Albert King pointed at me. He said, "Go on, Tom." I went by Tom in those days.
And you did.
And I'll never forget it, man. I took my solo, and it was just an amazing experience,
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, now that quote makes a lot of sense. Y'all came with the same roots, and then y'all went in different branches, but you've all stayed true to blues
And ourselves.
And yourselves.
We are great friends. The three of
can
us
tell.
share
I
a
can
friendship that is foundational in our lives, but also in our professional lives.
50 years or some shit, something like that.
Long time.
Well, just to kind of hit on a few things that you guys have also accomplished, because obviously we could sit here all day and tell more stories about
There's so
this,
many
and
good
hopefully
stories. I wish we could tell you all this, at least 10% of the stories.
And hopefully we can do some more.
that would
where
take
we can
10
get some
hours.
More. But you're one of the hardest working people here in the Valley. You're playing with so many different bands, and
I work a lot.
You keep the blues alive, doing your part.
And I do other gigs too. I play in other kind of bands,
do?
rock bands. I play in a band called the Megatons. They do a lot
Yes.
of. It's a rock band basically, but and they do covers that. Of course, they say we megatonize every song, but we play. In fact, I'll give a plug. This won't air beforehand, but we'll be at the Santa Clara Festival, Central Park this Friday. We'll be at the Los Altos Art and Wine Festival on Sunday. They do a lot of those, mostly outdoor concert type things.
And you still teach?
Still teach.
And you're an author?
I'm an author. Well, Frank and I are both authors
Yes.
from
I
the
was getting
School
to
of the
that,
Blues.
too. There you go.
And Frank's book.
I didn't know you had a book.
Yeah, actually, so real quick, I'll just say, in 2002, David Barrett, who's a harmonica player and instructor, got Frank and John Garcia, a couple other guys, to start a school, the School of the Blues, to teach people how to play blues, authentic blues. And basically, primarily authentic urban, centered in Chicago blues. I saw an ad in the Metro when I was on the road with James Cotton, and I had grabbed a Metro, and I was, you're on the bus or your train or whatever a lot. So I'm looking and I say, "There's a school in San Jose called the School of the Blues. How can that happen? And I don't know anything about it." So it had just opened recently. So I called the number and left a message. And Dave called me up a couple of days later, and he says, "Yeah, this is Dave Baird. Do you remember me?" And I go, "Oh gosh, I don't know, not really." And he goes, "You were the first drummer I ever played with when Gary Smith brought me to JJ's."
Yeah.
And I
you
said,
go.
"Okay,
All
he's a little
roads
bit
lead
younger."
back to JJ's.
Yeah, when I played with Gary Smith and we played JJ's all the time, David Barrett was like 14, 15, 16 years old. His dad would drive him to the gig, and he'd jam with us. He'd play with us, and so he learned from Gary, Then when David had this idea about teaching, he was in Morgan Hill at a music store, him and John Garcia. Then they called me up and said, well, can you come to our events and provide the bass for us for a while? I said, yeah, will you back up students? Of course I would. And then that led to David signing with Mel Bay. Then that led to the Chicago Blues book that had me and John and I forget who else on there. Nate Pruitt was the singer. We had a couple of vocal songs on there.
Steve Karsinski played keys.
Yeah, Steve Zarnicki. Yeah.
Zarnicki.
Frank comes to sit in every once in a while. I always say, here's this guy, my friend Frank DeRose, he wrote the book on blues bass playing.
And he really did.
Yeah, and I wrote three. I was fortunate enough to write three, and the Essential Blues Bass Grooves, Kevin consulted on that, and I still teach today. Yeah. I like to play, but I love to teach.
I wouldn't have got that gig if it weren't for Frank and John Garcia. Because when I talked to David, and I was just saying, if you want someone to come in and do a clinic or something, but I guess Frank and John worked him over or something, because he called me up and he goes, hey, actually, do you want a gig? So I started teaching there in 2003.
Yeah.
We got the contract in 2005.
So Frank, I know you've played with all the big names too.
Just like these guys, yeah.
And then you also have been instrumental in not just the House Rockers, but you've also been involved in some other bands too.
Yeah, I have.
Tip of the Top.
Tip of the Top, and we played right here. There used to be a little stage
Right here,
We
at
played
the Smoking Pig.
But when you look at the poster for that JJ's Blues Festival, the second annual, there was Nightcry, Gary Smith, Pontiac Blues Band. John Lawton, who ended up being the guitar player for Tip of the Top, was in Pontiac's Blues Band. Yeah, we didn't know each other then. And it was like December of 2009 over at the Grandel Saloon. Jimmy D calls me up and says, I got a gig. I want you to come and play. And John Lawton's playing guitar. I go, I don't know. You don't know John Lawton? You guys will be great together. Now, at that point in the background, I'm working with Carlos on drums and Aki Kumar. They were both like student players. And Aki was still kind of timid. He hadn't figured it out yet. And then we tried different local guitar players. And this is 2009. And so I go play the gig in December, and I told Aki and Carlos, hey, I'm going to go play over here with Jimmy D. Come on, hang out. And they weren't there yet, but I knew in the first 5 minutes that John Lawton was the guy. So I talked to him on the break, and I tell him what I'm trying to do, this band with just snare and small amps, and we're going to sit down, we're going to wear suits, we're going to look totally different and try to play totally different than everybody else. He goes, I'm in. He drove all the way down from Oakland for like 4.5 years to do this.
You guys made a few records? 2 or 3?
Yeah, 3 records. We had 3 records that went around Europe and around the United States. And there was a few times, the way the blues radio works is based on number of airplays, you get ranked. So there was a few times Tommy's record's out and Tip of the Top record's out, and we were like 1 or 2 spots above the frequency play.
Blues radio, cool.
Competition. And then most recently, you were involved and very instrumental in getting Mississippi Slide going too.
Yeah. Johnny Cat had met Elijah, and then Johnny goes, because I've been friends with Johnny for a long time, and at the hanging out with Johnny one day, he goes, yeah, I met her singer, and because he's trying to prepare for gig life after Terry Hank, and I go, who is it? He goes, I'm not going to tell you because you're going to steal her from me. But eventually he asked me to join the band, and it was a real trip.
Yeah.
That's another band like Tip of the Top that just kind of went from nowhere to
and they
all
were
of a
back
sudden
in
we're
Memphis.
playing. We went back to Mississippi
recently.
Slide went to Memphis. Tip of the Top went to
Yeah.
Memphis.
Yeah.
We were the first band of the Golden Gate Blues Society under the new formed, Blues Foundation affiliate out here, and so I have been blessed to go through all of that stuff.
Can I plug somebody real quick?
Sure.
There's a singer I work with. Her name's Kay Bowler. And,
Yeah, I see that. You do play with her a lot.
she moved to the San Jose area in the late 90s. And the reason I want to shout out to her is because she's a very dynamic performer, but she's had a working blues band in this area for literally like 30 years now. Also, a shameless plug, she's got a new CD coming out. Robert Berry produced it with her, and she does a great Etta James tribute, plus she does her own original music. And I just, an opportunity to give a shout out to somebody that I think deserves it.
Yeah, I just finally saw her live for the Fountain Blues VIP kickoff party just last week. Yeah, and she was amazing. She was great. You have a very long history and more than we can touch here. But you moved on through several different bands, and I know that we've mentioned the Dynatones several times, and that got you on a national stage, if I'm not mistaken. And then you eventually moved into your own band.
Series of events, fortunate and unfortunate. But before we leave here, I want to point out that we missed a little piece of my story there, where it was when I was this guy that didn't have any gigs and really hadn't been in a real blues band yet. I would go out and I was a young man going to nightclubs and bars, as you do, and I found Chris Cain playing somewhere along the line. I found Chris and his band doing club gigs, and every chance I got, I'd go see those guys. And I like to drink a little, and I would just be so excited about this music. I mean, come on. Cain is an amazing. He was every bit as amazing then as he is now.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the world's greatest guitar players that ever played the blues. He is also one of the most educated, schooled musicians that we all know. He's advanced on many levels and great songs. He writes the coolest songs. And I can't say enough about Chris Cain, but that was what the light bulb that went off in my head. I saw Chris doing this, and then the next thing I heard is he had a record out.
Or was that Late Night City
That
Blues?
was that in the days when you couldn't make your own record on your computer. You had to have a record deal. You had to have something going on. You had to have something to make it right. He made a record. I was, wow. And then I heard he had gone and done some festivals in Europe.
Yeah.
And I was going, wow. Guy right here from my hometown. Doing stuff like that. I could never do that, but man, that is so cool. And little by little, I started thinking to myself, I owe it to myself to give it a try. I'll never play like Chris. I know that. But maybe in my own way, I can find my way.
Be yourself anyway.
And so I moved to the city to get a better shot. That's the real story. Is that was the most inspiration was because I could see Albert King and BB King play, and I could see all of these people that are bigger than life that you see on screens and radios and movies, theaters, and blah blah blah. But Cain was a guy in my hometown. I shook his hand. I could go talk to him on the break, and he was hilarious. He was a nice fucking guy, and I thought, wow. It kind of made a more realistic possibility to me.
Well, I've heard that from several people. Just recently, Noel Couture, who plays in JC's band.
He was in the original.
He grew up
Chris
in that
Cain
area, yeah. And
What
they
a
said
band
they
that
would
was.
go to his house, and they said Chris Cain would listen to all these albums, and he would just capture what he heard, and he just kept doing that over and over again, and they were just jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And
Well, he could copy the licks, but he always had a sense of his own being.
as he
that
developed,
instilled
yes,
into
yes,
it.
yeah. He
And
learned
his
all of that,
singing
and then
was-
moved on.
Yeah.
When you know Chris, he could have a voice like Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
And then when he sings, there's that big voice that comes out of somebody who just a few minutes ago backstage with me is being Jerry Lewis jokes, and it's like, wow, where did that voice come from?
I know where it came from. He told me the story. So on YouTube, there's a video of me interviewing Cain. It goes on for 2 hours. So look it up, Tommy Castro. It's my YouTube channel, and it's great. But there's this one story where he's playing with Andy Just. He had a few Mickey's Big Mouths. And he got up. He wasn't sure. He knew he had to sing. He didn't know how he was going to sing. He was afraid. He was scared to death of singing. He had no idea what to do with his voice. And he went up and he was singing, and it came out like that. He didn't. He went,
just happened.
"What the hell?
Is that how I sing?
What was that?" And he thought, "That's my thing. That's my voice."
Wow.
And he's ever singing that way ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that's really cool about you with your national and international travel, you've still kept close to San Jose.
Oh yeah.
And
His roots.
as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, your latest album is self-described as the most authentic blues album that you've done. Because I know you've kind of made every album a little bit different, a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this one, and you even recorded it with somebody here in San Jose, with Kid Anderson at his Greaseland
Oh yeah, we
studios.
recorded it here in
Yeah.
San Jose.
Yeah.
I record. Wow. So the shelf life of that album is just about up. It's good for like 2 years. So it's going to come up in February of next year. It's going to be it'll be 2 years.
Okay.
So we got to jump on it. We started working on another one already. So.
And I think you've got a big name working with you on your latest one too, if I'm not mistaken.
The next one, it's going to be a completely different kind of record. It's more of a contemporary blues record.
Okay.
Produced by Joe Bonamassa.
That's
And
where
he's-
I was
he's
going.
producing
I
it,
didn't
yeah.
know how I was supposed to say that, so I didn't say it.
I did not know
I
that.
knew that.
Okay, I just
So,
picked up
so
on
that's
some-
how different it is.
Good for
you. know,
you.
it's real strong and it's real. You know, Joe's great. He's really great, and the fact that he took the time to do this for me was really
Speaks a lot.
amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful, and it came out well. I mean, it came out great. And it's a different kind of record, though. It's a long story, so I won't go into it. But the one you're talking about it's closer to the bone. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I thought of you guys all, while I was making this record, especially Frank, because he was the one more like a teacher to me. He would always teach me why I needed to play it that way and where it came from and how, and I would so when I'm doing a traditional blues album, I covered all the different little kinds of things that I like to do. I did Wynonie Harris, I did Ray Charles. And then I thought, I'm going to do some of my friends' songs that, if I could do a B.B. King song, why can't I do Chris Cain? It's every bit as good.
Yeah.
So I did Chris Cain's song. I did a Ron Thompson song, another one of my influences. And I could go on about Ron. And then Johnny Nitro, who was like my mentor in San Francisco. When I got there, Nitro took me under his wing. Him and Johnny Ace, and they taught me a lot about that. That was my transformation from here
above the saloon.
to the city. Yeah, he lived and died
Above the saloon.
above the saloon.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had a favorite guitar that you had
Yes.
wanted at a pawn shop, I think?
No, Nitro used to keep his guitars in a pawn shop because he
That's
said they were safer than where he lived. Yeah. So it was great. He said, and I cracked up when I heard that. He goes, so yeah, if I ever need any money or if I want the guitar out, I just go get it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this particular night, he's getting one of these guitars out. He's going to sell it. This guy's going to meet him at the club, and I see it, and I'm looking at my crappy, old 3-bolt neck, cheesy 70s guitar. Stratocaster was not a good one, and I didn't like it. It was cream colored.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was like, it worked. It was the only guitar I had, and so Nitro brings this thing. He's going to sell it, and I said, Johnny, you got it.
Is that the black one?
I don't have any money, but I got to have this guitar. And he looked at me and he goes, oh, man.
If you have a guitar, you'll make
I
the
kind of
money.
need the money. He goes, but listen, I'll tell you what. You give me that one. You give me your guitar and like $200, and you can give me the rest later. The total was $600.
Oh my God.
And it's 1966 Fender Stratocaster, which I still have today.
Yeah, the black one, right?
Yeah, I'll never sell that. It's going to go to my kids. But yeah, long story.
I have a much better vision of how all of this happened. I thank you all very much. And with what time we have left, I'm going to let you each tell one more good story about your illustrious careers. If there's anything, or a favorite person, a favorite performance, anything that just jumps out at your memory. Or is there just too many?
For me, there's several. There's a couple that jump out at me. One is when Mike Shermer transitioned into taking Tommy's place at the Jam. I got close to Shermer and Andy Santana and June Core, so I played with them.
Soul Drivers.
The Soul Drivers, because their bass player really wasn't a hardcore blues guy like I am. So I was a better fit. So for a while, I played with them. That led me one year to be playing at the Santa Cruz Blues Festival with Snooky Pryor. Now, I would always get these calls, no rehearsal. Just show up, you'll know what to do.
That's the
And
way.
you did, didn't you?
Well, of course, yeah, I did. But I didn't even meet him backstage. We go out, I go out, and Rusty's on the show too. We go out and we do a couple songs, warm up, and then they call out Snooky, and he comes over to me and says, "Hey, son, we're gonna play some blues, key and G. Here we go." And away we go. And and then one other one that's similar to that. I get a call one morning, at 8 o'clock in the morning from JC. "I want you. I need you. We got Mighty Mo Rodgers. His band did not get on the airplane from LA. Be at my house, breakfast. Mighty Mo set up the piano. He'll talk us through a few songs, and we can go over there for sound check and set up and play." I just never forget those things. It's just like I get the call and
you're there.
I gotta go.
You're there.
Have bass will go. And
And all it has led you to. My gosh.
yeah. It's been the ride of a lifetime, and we all have a different path, but the common thing of the path has always been the music, making the music, playing together. And so, like when I'm lucky enough to sit in and play with Tommy, it's just like JJ's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just like
I pull out the songs that we never do in my band normally, and I look at Frank and go,
the Spanish Boy,
Spanish Boy, or
just like we did in JJ's.
So you got another something you just don't want to miss telling us about?
Well, I'll say this. I've worked with just a huge list of people, but I just want to say this, that the reason that the underpinning reason, of course, I mean, I've learned the material and I understand the history and all that, but it's because of so many people giving me opportunities and that I'm super grateful for.
It's a community.
It is a community.
well,
J.C.
you earn
Smith.
those opportunities, my boy, because if you can't play, you don't get those opportunities.
I go to a diner in Palo Alto called the Palo Alto Creamery, and they have a bunch of little restaurant T-shirts. And on the back of one of them is my favorite saying: "The harder I work, the luckier I get."
Yeah.
So we all put the work in. There's no doubt about it.
But I kind of did. I think I've had a little more luck and fortune than I have, and good fortune than I have.
You have the
I've
work
worked,
ethic
I've
too.
worked really hard.
Yeah.
I've worked really hard, but I'm not a good student.
Yeah.
I'm not a good study. I have to work really hard because I've ADD and I have a hard time staying focused on things. But I keep going back. It's like when somebody says, like training a puppy. If it's going to wander off, they bring it back. Go on the paper. go on the paper. It's going to wander off, and it's going to bring it back.
Interesting analogy.
That's how my mind works, you know. John Lee was alive and living in the Bay Area. It was really, really cool running into him every once in a while.
That's what everybody says.
We had the same booking agent at one time, and so we would get a lot of shows with him.
Yeah.
And he was always so nice to me, you know. I never expected him to remember who I was or give me the time of day.
But
I mean, he's John Lee Hooker. He's 80 years old already, and how could he? Yes, but he would always remember who I was. He would always be very kind. And this one time, I asked him to record. I was working on an album, and I could hear him singing on this, just kind of doing some ad libs over this song. It's called "Guilty of Love," and it was and so. It was a little doing, you know, going to management, you know, arranging for this to happen. You know, we got, you know, we worked it all out. So we said, I'm not gonna make this easy for John. I'm not gonna drag him into some studio, something like that. We're gonna come to his house. We're gonna have a track already recorded. He could sit down anywhere he wants with a microphone and just do his thing. How about that? And so we worked that out. So we were gonna arrive and bring in a little mobile recording unit, me and my engineer, and we got there and we started ringing the bell and nobody answered. For about 40 minutes, nobody came to the door.
Long time to stay.
Yeah.
And
It's John Lee Hooker. So.
and I, you know, but finally his nephew Archie came out and he said, "Hey, what's happening?" You know. So, well, long story short, we wound up getting in there and setting everything up. And John Lee, this is the image I wanted you guys to see. There's pictures of this on the internet somewhere. But he's sitting in his house watching TV, watching a ball game, and drinking a beer. You know, and I think he had a steak or something on a TV tray. You know, and he's just relaxing, and he's in his place, and he's wearing his hat. He's wearing the suit jacket, the pants that match, silk shirt, thick and thins, you know, dress shoes. That's how he relaxed in his house. Wow. And Zakia at his service said, "I've never seen my dad in a pair of sweatpants in my life, or a pair of jeans.
Or jeans.
I've never seen him wear anything but what a blues man wears." And that's that. And I was like, man, that's true. We went to his house in the middle of the afternoon, and there he was, John Lee Hooker and I sat next to him on the couch, and he did his ad libs over this track, you know, and I'm looking over there, and it was surreal.
I bet.
It was an amazing feeling and an amazing moment. This is a moment of your life, Castro, that you want to make sure is ingrained deeply into your brain and your heart and your soul. So about a week later, I'm walking through an airport, and I see his picture up on the screen, and I knew what it was.
Oh,
I was like,
Just a week later.
there's only one reason I think that they would have John Lee's picture up there at this point in time.
Memoriam.
Yep, and he had passed, and it was like about a week after, and the good news is he died in his sleep, in his bed, in his house,
Yeah.
like everybody wants
Yeah, in
to.
Los Altos Hills.
Yeah, he had a good life.
Yeah.
John Lee was a lot of fun, you know, because I would meet him when Gary Lange played for John Lee Hooker. I'd go to the shows, and Steve Gomes was the bass player.
When he was a little younger, man, he could stomp around the stage.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah. He would get up and
he was
boogie
badass.
to it. But in 1980, the night before, a couple days before, Gary Smith and the House Rockers were going to play our first gig, we had our equipment stolen. Out of my van, no less. God. But Lange had told Hook that, man, we had our stuff stolen. John Lee says, you guys organize a benefit, and I will give you all the money.
Wow.
So we played the bodega, John Lee Hooker, we opened, and
Cool.
the other guys in the band, Gomes and Gary Huff was a drummer, if I remember right at that time. They gave us all the money to replace our equipment.
Wow.
So John Lee, very generous,
Very cool.
kind man.
Yeah. And I heard it said that he preferred playing in places like JJ's, the little places, as opposed to all the big places that he's played because
You get such a personal experience that you share with
people
people.
felt it. They
Right.
didn't just hear it. And
I think
again,
personally, John Lee liked playing the big shows.
oh, well, okay.
I think he personally liked that. It's making the big time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
he's gotten. You know, he played. I'm sure he played enough of those. I'm sure he still enjoyed playing a small club. We all do.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that
Well, he could do both.
He was proud to
He
have
could have
made
it
it as
both.
big as he did with
Yeah.
that Healer album. Broke out and it changed his life completely.
Yeah.
I mean, he died a wealthy man. You know, and it certainly wasn't like that a few years earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, we all saw him, you know, playing small joints, and
I saw him one time up on Grant, in North Beach
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
yeah, there was a little bar in the Prune Yard one time that we were doing blues for a short time, and he was playing. That was his gig. Him and Deacon Jones and all of them.
Deacon.
Oh, who else was with him at that
Tim
time?
Richard
You
would
know,
play
Probably
with him
Liz
like a
Gibbs.
lot of-
it
I
might have
talked to
been
Tim,
Bowen
too.
Brown on drums. I don't know, man. I think Bowen got in later.
Oh, it was
Tim was,
Lamont.
Tim was the last 10 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, he
Good
did
for
live in
him.
our valley. He moved here in the late 60s, lived in Gilroy, Redwood City, and then his home in Los Altos Hills, where he passed away in 2001. So it's, and during that time before he started getting the later, a bit of a resurgence in his career, we were all blessed that he spent a lot of time here and showed up at places like JJ's. So I want to thank all of you. I know we could keep talking.
oh yeah, we got plenty.
And but I
There's
just
more to the story.
there's more to the story, and we'll do our best to get more of the stories out there. But thank you very, very much for joining us here today, and appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Fun, thanks.
And thanks, you guys.
And we put this together so fast too. It's like
These
let's
guys
do
had a
it.
lot to do with my development.
Oh,
I don't know if you
yeah.
want to take any credit for that, but
Well, there you go.
A lot of history.
It's
yeah.
there.
It's the music that's in us. It's oftentimes I think that's what we're put here on this earth to do, is to do what we've been doing together and separately, and learning and passing it on.
it's interesting
an
that people
important part.
love this music so much. People who love blues in particular, there's a certain kind of passion that I don't see all around,
Right.
It's interesting. I don't know exactly what it is, because it's been my life for so long. I get plenty of it. I know it's never too far away from me. But the people who are the ones that really support us are the fans, the people who buy the music, go to the shows, and they're the ones keeping it alive. There's not much we can do, without the consumer. People who are
And the
really
Blues Cruise.
into it.
A couple times I was on the Blues Cruise. You really get that feeling from the
Yeah.
people on the cruise.
It's their life. It's like, this is, like air and food. I have to have this. And it's really interesting. I don't think I completely understand it, and maybe if I had it taken away from me for a while, or I couldn't, I would maybe understand a little bit more. But it's just it's a wonderful thing, and I'm really blessed and really happy that it happened to me somehow along the way.
Yeah, I feel
get
the
to
same
keep
thing.
doing this.
I feel very blessed that it's happened to me. To meet Paul, to meet Gary Smith, to meet Tommy, to meet Shermer, Andy Santana, Andy Just, Chris Cain,
It goes on and on.
and to
And-
play with them all.
Right here in San Jose, California.
I was
of
just
all
going to
of
say
the-
that. I'm right
all
here in San
places.
Jose,
Of
California.
all the unlikely
Yeah.
places that we'd have this kind of a center
Magic.
Of, yeah,
It's been
magic.
magic.
It truly has
Yeah,
been.
yeah. And thank you, San Jose Rocks. We appreciate giving us the opportunity to tell more of the stories. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
There's a crosstown bar where my friends hang out. When we play the blues, people scream and shout. It's a funky little place, like a narrow hall. With all my buddies' pictures hanging on the wall. We'll have a blues party. We'll have a blues party, baby. We'll have a blues party, people. Gonna have us a blues party all night long. We'll have a blues party. of the place. Have a blues party. We'll have a blues party, baby.